At the end of this lesson, you will be able to graph horizontal and vertical lines. You will identify the slope and the y-intercept values of these linear functions to help us do so. So for question 1, it asks for what is the slope or the m value of the line shown at the right. So usually for m, we figure out what is our rise over run. So let's take a look. If I start out at this point here and travel to this next bold point, we can see that there is no rise at all. So we rise 0, but we run over, let's count, we run over 8 units. I rise 0, run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 0 divided by 8 is equivalent to 0. So m equals 0. The slope is 0. Okay, now it wants to know the y-intercept, which is always at 0, comma, b. So our y-intercept, it crosses the y-axis right here. So our b value, since it's at 0, comma, 4, that means that b must be 4. So for part C, it asks us to write the equation of this line. Well, we know the standard format, the equation of any line, is y equals mx plus b. M always being the slope, and b always being the y-intercept value, where it crosses the y-axis. So this equation should then be y equals 0x plus 4. Well, 0 times x ends up being 0, so it just is y equals, this term ends up just being 0 plus 4, so it's just y equals 4. This is the equation of the line shown above. Y equals 4. For our notes, there's a few things we should know. All horizontal lines turn out to be just y equals some number. That is because their slope is always 0. Horizontal lines never rise, so they always rise 0 and then run either 1, 2, 3, it does not matter. They just rise 0, so their slope is 0. And they always will cross the y-axis. They will always touch the y-axis at the value for the equation. Okay, for problem 2, what is the slope of the line shown at the right? So again, let's start out with slope is m. So let's look. If I follow from this point to this point, let's count out our rise over run. So m is always rise over run. So here I count out that I'm going to rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to rise 5, and I'm going to run, well, I rise 5, but then I don't run, so the denominator is 0. What do we know about a fraction that involves 0 in the denominator? What is 5 divided by 0? Well, hopefully you remember, it's impossible. It's called undefined. Do you remember the slope dude video when the guy skis right off the cliff and he screams, undefined? Well, that's because the slope cannot be determined based on a denominator of 0. It's called undefined. Okay, so now let's take a look at the y-intercept, which should be at 0, comma, b. Well, this line does not cross the y-axis at all, so there is no y-intercept. So for part C, it's asking us, can we write the equation of a line? It's normally y equals mx plus b, but we now have an undefined value here, so that's impossible. And then we have no value for b. So no, the equation cannot be written until I summarize these notes with you. For vertical lines, there's actually a separate way to write the equation. If you notice, there's something in common among all of the points on this line. Every single point on this line has an x value of 2. This would be 2, 1. This would be 2, 2. This would be 2, comma 3. And then this is 2, negative 1. So x is always 2. This is the reason why vertical lines will always be x equals just a number. Their slope will always be undefined because you'll always be rising but never running. And they will always cross the x-axis, causing it to be an x equals equation. Wherever it crosses the x-axis helps you choose this number here. Although we've only covered 2 types of special linear functions today in this lesson, these simple facts can become confusing. So these 2 acronyms are created just to help remind us. HOI and VUX. If you memorize them, they will remind you that horizontal lines are the ones with the 0 slope, and they're always y equals equations. For vertical lines, they will always have an undefined slope and therefore be an x equals equation. So if I go back onto my notes, I would add by vertical lines my notes for VUX, and I would add for horizontal lines my notes for HOI. That way it will help me remember the difference as I approach each problem. Okay, so now if we memorize those notes, they will always help. I see x equals just a number, so I have to ask myself if it's HOI or VUX. So HOI or VUX. Well, x is involved in VUX, so this must be a vertical line. And if I don't know where to begin at the value they give you. I go to the x-axis, I begin at negative 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and plot a point. And now, in order to stay negative 5, I have to create a vertical line that always has an x value of negative 5. And now I'd like to label it x equals negative 5. For the next equation, this one I could technically try to use m and b since m is 0 and b is negative 3. However, if I use y, I realize a y equals equation is always a horizontal line with 0 slope. So I begin at the y-axis at negative 3. 1, 2, 3, and I plot a point. Then I realize y is always negative 3 if I go side to side. So now we're going to create a horizontal line where y is equal to negative 3. And then, of course, label it y equals negative 3. You should pause the video here and try parts C and D as well as E and F, and then go back to check your answers. Okay, please check your answers to parts C and D. Part C, you should have a horizontal line at y equals 6, beginning your point at 6 on the y-axis and extending left and right. For D, it should be a vertical line at x equals 4, beginning at 4 on the x-axis and extending up and down. Check your answers to E and F. E is a horizontal line, but F, we need to change this. Let's go back. This piece right here, we do not want. We want to start at x equals 3. So this one, the original point that I had plot, was in the wrong spot. This indicates it should be a vertical line beginning at x equals 3. So on the x-axis, I begin at 3, and now I extend up and down for a vertical line. So this one will go this way, and we can now label this equation, this linear function, with the equation x equals 3. I know that this is correct because every single x value on this line has an x value of 3. This is 3, 2, this would be 3, 3, this would be 3, 0. So x is always 3. Please use HOI and VUX to check your answers, just as I caught my own mistake on part F.